I've already introduced you to the no-purl purling method using a double knitting board to achieve the effect of purls without the traditional method on a knitting loom. The ribbing on this scarf was made on a single rake loom, also using a method of no-purl purling, but a different one. In the video on the right, I'm working the initial end of a scarf. I used the E-wrap cast on, so I actually knitted 11 rows to make 10 rows of ribbing. More about that in a moment. On the left, I am working the terminal end, the final part of the scarf, and I've knitted 10 plain rows, and in each case, we're laddering down the columns of stitches that we want to be the purl stitches. The knit twos are already done. We need do nothing else. In both cases, I'm being very careful only to ladder down 10 rows. In the case of the beginning of the scarf, I don't want to actually encroach on the cast on, which was E-wrap, and tends to come undone. There is a way to handle that, but the simple way is what I did. Knit 11 rows rather than 10. Ladder down to the first row of true stitches, and that first true stitch is the one you pick up on your tool to start latching up. On the final end of the scarf, there is patterning below the ribbing. Some of it includes some tucked purl columns, so I want to be sure not to encroach upon that part of the patterning. My preferred tool for this job is a latch tool that's actually made for machine knitting. They're available on eBay if you don't have a machine knitting supplier, but any machine knitting supplier can get you one, and they're not expensive. A crochet hook will also work, but I find that the latch tool gives me a little bit more control because it grabs onto the stitches as you reform them. Both at the beginning and at the end of the project, you'll want to rehang the final stitch on its original peg. That way you can either continue the project or be ready to bind off. You already know how to knit and how to purl, so what would make you want to do this instead? 3 reasons. It can be a little faster. If purling is hard on your hand and your wrist for any reason, this can be a little bit easier on them. And some people find out that they like the look of the ribbing better using this technique. Let's have a look at this really slowly. All we're doing is taking our ladder of strands of yarn and starting with a stitch on the bottom, pulling each rung of the ladder through the previous stitch. You may also want to know that I am working on a Leisure Arts loom. It's got 1/2-inch spacing, center to center on the pegs, and I'm using one of my favorite number 4 yarns, Premier Everyday Worsted. This is an oval loom, and it takes a wide open space in the middle of the loom to allow us to use this kind of ribbing. Or if you have access because you're working on a single long straight rake, that works. Cindy Wood makes a similar loom to this one. This one is out of production. I think the pegs on Cindy Wood's 7/16 and 1/2-inch looms are a little bit bigger and taller than those on the Leisure Arts. I don't have one yet, but that's what I'm gathering from my research. I really like the fabric with the 1/2-inch spacing on this loom. However, I think that if using a Cindy Wood, you would get more similar fabric on the 7/16 than on the 1/2 because of the difference in the pegs. You can learn to make the scarf that I'm working on in this video from some other videos. There will be links in the program notes to guide you.